Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Check Me. Let's talk about this Packers Commanders game, break it down a little bit. I want to first start off by saying, hey, look, it's early. No need to overreact, but there are some telltale signs we can look at to see um, what are some things that teams need to work on. First, I'd say this Packers game started off with already a mismatch. Matt LaFleur is already 2-0 versus Dan Quinn, and Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, respectively, over the past couple of years, playing at Green Bay, and then Dan Quinn's time ending at the Falcons, and then Cliff Kingsbury at Arizona. So you already come with a disadvantage. I also like to say Cliff Kingsbury and Matt LaFleur, kind of the same guys when it comes to their offensive attack. Um, they're both in mid 40s. They think of being aggressive, and being able to win championships. It's kind of the same mindset you see a lot of like young coaches come in. They think and focus more on offense. The complexities of defense are a little bit more elaborate because a defensive coordinator has to have a little more experience when it comes to tendencies, things they're seeing, film study, not just focused on play scheme. Play scheme is what you see a lot of young guys say, I can design a play very well, design an offense very well. And they come in, they coach in this league, and they have high powered offenses. But if you look at most of the defensive coordinators, they're more tenured, they're more senior because defense takes a little bit more complex thinking than just being able to design something well and experience as well. So, um, I want to say this: Green Bay is an established team. This team brought a player in, Micah Parsons, to really just make their team a little bit more refined. Um, when you bring a guy in like Micah Parsons, it completely changes the dynamic of the game. But this team had receivers working on the off season. They brought in Tucker Craft, which I think is a rookie. Um, Wicks, Romeo Dobbs, these guys. Is he a rookie? Yeah, he played in the years for in the league for a little bit, but these guys have been working on the all season. You got quarterback Jordan Love, who plays well in all season. You got established running back, and you have a defense. Like this team came in already kind of established. Washington had some pieces missing. In the all season, we saw how they struggled a little bit with the Giants to really put them away. Even though they did put them away at the end, but they struggled to put them away at the end. But what what Washington thought they were able to do with the Packers, they tried the same thing with the Giants. Now, the Giants did make sure they established a run game with Josh Jacobs, and Josh Jacobs ran well. I mean, they Packers rushed over 100 yards. Josh Jacobs went to 23 for 84, had one touchdown, but they were consistent on the ground. And Washington believed that they could play up with their front four and then play seven guys on the back end. And what you see is a lot of teams in the league transitioning to this too high safety look. They say if we beef up our front four and then play seven back, we want to play 7-on-5 or 7-on-4 when it comes to pass coverage, and then and the defensive line gets to the quarterback, but you gotta have the personnel for it. You gotta have a good defense that's a little tenured, a little bit more understanding of how defense moves, and guys that know how to play smart in this position. I think they have some smart DBs, but Washington has some smart DBs, but the front four just isn't there yet. And I think that they'll have to see a little bit more man, which they played man, play a little bit more man coverage, combo zone, combo man to really confuse, but that really confused the offense. But that comes with a defensive coordinator really understanding the game tendencies, watching film, seeing things over time, just putting guys in the right places. You want an experienced defensive coordinator if you can't have four guys up front who can get to the quarterback. So that's one thing. Too high safety look is what the teams are trying to do. If you don't have front four, it's a failure. Washington's just not there yet. You lost Jonathan Allen, De'Aaron Payne has come in, but you still need to beef up that defensive line. Von Miller made some plays, but he's on the verge of his career where he's a rotational player, not an impact player like he was before. So that's just the scope, right? That's the scope of this Washington Green Bay game from what we saw. Um, we also saw like you got I tweeted this when they drafted Brian Robinson Jr. The best pick that Washington could have made. You released or you traded your best downhill back for a running backs, combo running backs that fit a style offense that has not been successful in the NFL. and I'll talk about this later. But Brian Robinson was a downhill back. I'm not sure why guys got mad at him. When you're a running back and not getting consistent touches like that in an air raid offense like Cliff Kingsbury, you get cold. But this is a guy who split backs, throughout his college career. Of course, he was a premier back his last year, but split time. He's ready to go. He can tote the ball. He's a downhill runner. He got shot in the leg and came back and rushed for 700 yards. I think 8 touchdowns one year. Yet they still traded him. That's crazy. That's insane. And you see how he's needed now. Washington on the ground, 19 carries for 51 yards, and most of those carries were for Jayden Daniels, who 7 for 17. Some of those carries were for Jayden Daniels, who went 7 for 17, who had the longest run of the game for the Washington Commanders, which was 8 yards. That was the longest run of the game. So what does that mean? They just sat back and played the pass because they had no run game. You get Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt and then Austin Eckler, who's I hope not, but maybe out for the season. Now you literally have one back that you're working with, and he's a rookie and he's not a downhill runner, right? You have a serious problem. So you might be looking at waivers and figuring out a back that you can get that can fit into this air raid offense. But this is the biggest flaw with this offense. It's not designed to run the ball. There has not been an air raid offense that has won a Super Bowl ever in NFL history. No team has ever won, no coach has ever won a Super Bowl with the air raid offense. Yet Cliff Kingsbury is using it. Of course, he uses like RPO and like they use tempo and whatnot. They use personnel. So 10 personnel is four receivers and one back. You don't have a fullback typically on at all. Your quarterback is pretty much going to be your tailback or halfback in conjunction with the tight end if he goes in. Ertz was standing up in 2-point stance often. Ertz, one of the Eagles' reasons why Eagles released him, he wasn't a blocking tight end, and we want a guy who can block and pass catch as well too. But you have a defense, offense that's an air raid offense that has not ever been successful in the NFL, and this is what Cliff Kingsbury is bringing. It's easy to figure it out. It's easy to stop. You have to have the personnel for it. Deebo Samuel can sometimes win on man coverage, but he's not the same guy he was when he wasn't with the 49ers the first part of the years, right? You have to shift Deebo around to make him a little bit more weaponized. Terry McLaurin, he's nullified in this offense because, where Terry McLaurin works well in creating space for himself. Of course, he can get open in any offense, but where he works well in creating space, route creativity. Creating space, route creativity, finding spots in the zone. He's kind of limited because he's not the first look. Plays aren't designed for him. It's basically saying like we have 4 receivers who can all do the same thing, and that's not how this offense should operate with this personnel. You have a utility player like Deebo Samuel. You have Terry McLaurin, who's your one, and a reliable pass catcher like Zach Ertz. You have the personnel that's really not designed for this offense. Noah Brown, other guy, what's his name? I don't know, that got clamped on that last play. Jalen Lane, like these guys aren't going to be guys that typically win one-on-one with other guys in the league, and you have to have that if you have an air raid offense. You don't have that. I will say this, Jayden Daniels will be okay, but you have to get him help. You cannot, halfway through the game, say we're going to run empty the whole time. Now they're just teeing off on Jayden Daniels, and where he was able to run and make some plays in certain situations, you're not going to be able to do that with guys flying down when there's nothing downfield and the D line's getting to you. So, like where Jayden Daniels, did avoid, a lot of sacks. He got sacked 4 times for 21 yards. He was getting beat up. He was getting smacked. And you have to put him in a position to be successful. I'm saying this because we protect quarterbacks in year 1, right? Design of the offense. But year 2, you have to have them develop beyond just the offense. And when you have an air raid offense and offense breaks down because the team has 7 back in coverage and the Packers are rushing forward because you have no run game, what do you expect Jayden Daniels to do? Like, what can he do? You're positioning him to fail. And this is why Cliff Kingsbury failed in Arizona. He didn't succeed in Arizona. You have to develop the guy beyond the offense. If not, the D coordinator is going to beat the offense and your guy's going to be sitting there to improvise. Improvisation only works a certain way, like a certain extent. You have to develop him to create. I think Washington will be okay, right? I told you I think Washington wins. If they do what they're supposed to and do what they do last year, They win, 10, 11 games and they compete. You have a game next week with the Raiders. It's an easy game. The Falcons, Chargers. You got winnable games. Once again, a very easy schedule. My goodness. I guess the first part, right? Raiders, Falcons, Chargers, Bears. But you have to have an offensive design that's going to allow your quarterback to develop year over year, play over play. I'm sorry, game over game, season over season. But if you don't do that, you're only allowing Jayden Daniels to work within the parameters of the offense and not allowing him to create because he's relying on the intelligent design of offensive coordinator and doesn't have the ability to change, flip things. He's ultimately going to fail because the defensive coordinators don't have to beat Jayden Daniels. They have to beat the offensive coordinator. So I say this because he'll be okay. But when you look at his numbers, this offense, he's going to have a pass over 20 yards. Because why? They're playing too high. They're playing quarters. They're playing six. They're playing two. They're able to just sit back in the zone. And the West Coast offense, the air raid offense is not being successful against this defense. You have to establish the run for you to be able to throw in the NFL. If you don't do that, you will not win. And once they figure it out, NFL, you can't do what you did this year and then do it next year. You can't do it. You can't do it. You just can't do it. Like you have to be better. You have to be smarter, and teams will figure it out. Now, Commanders, like I said, they have a good game next year. They should be next week with the Raiders. They should be good. I want to say this too. Terry McLaurin is blending in this offense. This guy who's had 1,000 yards over 7, 8 seasons with multiple quarterbacks, you're putting him in a offense where he's nullified, where he's obsolete, right? Teams don't have to shift their zone towards him or bracket him or double him because he's blending in. He's just another piece in this offense. He's not getting designed plays for him to create for him to get open. So he's just blending in, and he's obsolete. He's open. Said this last year. He's open almost all the time, but he'll never get a look because he's at the priority read or on the primary read in the offense. Sometimes, a lot of times, he's the afterthought. He's not positioned. You want him to be a big X on those plays where he can play one-on-one coverage on the outside and get open. You're not doing that for him. The last thing I'm going to say is this about with the Commanders. Last year, the Commanders had a luxury of playing with low expectations. The expectations were very, very low for the Washington Commanders. And you have a certain aggressiveness that you are able to showcase. I say that because this year, the Commanders so far didn't go for it at all on fourth down against the Giants and are 1 for 3, so 33% so far. Last year, they led the league in goal for it on fourth down. They were nearly 86%. They were 20 for 23 on fourth down. When you're playing sometimes nothing to lose, you're playing aggressive, right? That's to your advantage, right? That's to your advantage. This year, it's not to their advantage. There's expectation for them to win. So you're a little bit more skeptical if you go for it on fourth down. You're a little bit more skeptical of like, hey, look, if we don't position ourselves, like they'll be able to score on us. There's expectation of year two. So where the advantage was you played with your ears pinned back, no regard, like, hey, if it doesn't work, so be it. If it works, great, right? You have a little bit more stakes on the table where you can't do that this year, and that's starting to see because the times they did go for fourth down, didn't get it, and there's a lot more pressure, right? When you missed on fourth down last year, and when you get on fourth down this year, missing on fourth down this year, it's like, come on now, we did last year. So I think it's less of a year two slump for Jayden Daniels. It's more of develop the guy, like let his year two be just as strong as his year one, but you have to pour into him. He can play VR. He can do what's up in the video game, do this. But if you're telling him that he doesn't have an option after the system fails, it's Mayday. He's got credit with his feet to the point where he's just running the ball, right? You have to develop him, and we want to see Jayden Daniels be successful. Like we're rooting for him. We want to see him be successful, but he cannot be successful if you're not developing him beyond the offense. I talk with people all the time. They don't get it. They don't understand, and they're so focused on it's improvision. Improvision only works, right, when it is spontaneous. Improvision doesn't work when it's predictable. It's part of your offense. You have to develop him as a passer. Even so, this air raid the offense, you have to rely on intelligent offensive linemen, right? Them calling protections, right? Does Jayden Daniels have the ability to, or are you developing the ability to shift it in his offense, like shift the play or move something or change something in his offense? Like if Jayden Daniels sees something out there, right, and he's like, "Hey, look, I'm seeing something out there that may or may not work," and he did this with the Giants as well too, because he got mad. Jayden Daniels wants it. He got mad they called a timeout when he saw something, he was changing something. Cliff Kingsbury, instead of allowing Jayden Daniels to work and either succeed or fail in this, he called a timeout. He didn't allow Jayden Daniels to think. Like you have to allow Jayden Daniels to think in this offense because if you allow him to think, it may be a rough year, it may be rough, but at the end, it's going to yield return. So you have to have him be able to change things, manipulate things, and not just say, "Hey, look, my design is so good. You just follow my plan, follow my rubric, right? And you'll be successful." And then what happens? Then what happens? You get to a team that figures out your offense and you haven't trained your quarterback to or developed your quarterback to work outside the parameters of the offense, he's gonna fail. He's gonna improvise. To a point where improvising is his natural go-to, is his instinct. And when it's your instinct, it's predictable and they're able to stop it. So we want to see Terry McLaurin do well. I mean, Jayden Daniels do well, but you have to develop him outside the offense. If not, teams are going to start saying, okay, they don't have a fullback. Their running back, their top running back, went down because he had most of the carries. They're working with the rookie. They got to go to waivers and find a running back, get a free agent running back. Like they're going to start teeing off because they know that, hey, look, let's just rush forward, right? Because this offensive line is still trying to figure things out or just inexperienced, right? You got a rookie at the right tackle, I believe. Like, let's just, go to work. Um, Next week you got Max Crosby. like it doesn't get easier. Like it doesn't get and it doesn't get easier, right? This is not something that this is not something that you wake up and just say, oh, okay, look, hey, we're gonna be good. Like you have to protect Jayden Daniels, not just from a offensive line standpoint, but from a development standpoint. Um, Jordan Love, thought Jordan Love was okay. I don't think he was the best quarterback on the field. I think Jordan Love played the way he was supposed to. I thought he missed a lot of throws, made some throws, but missed a lot of throws. He is allowed to operate in this offense. We look at Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur wants guys to kind of operate in the offense, run heavy offense. Do I think Green Bay is a powerhouse in this league? No, I don't. I don't. I think that they still have a lot more work to do. Uh, you beat Detroit the first game. I've always said Detroit's overrated, but you got a tough Cleveland team. Let's see what they do. Tough Cleveland team, right? But you got a Cleveland team, you got Dallas, you got Cincinnati, Arizona. We're going to know quickly who the Green Bay Packers are. They do not have an easy schedule. You got playoff team, Cleveland, not playoff team, but Dallas, I think, is a playoff team. Cincinnati, Arizona, Pittsburgh, Carolina. Like literally the next five games for you, you're playing tough teams, right? You're gonna figure out who you are. Of course, their schedule on the back end is kind of light, but still, overall, no need to overreact. These teams have a lot of work to do. A lot of time to figure things out. It's only the second game of the season, but that's just my analysis on the game. Let me know what you guys think. Comment. I know you guys bash me all the time. Comment. I want to know your thoughts, what you're seeing out there in the section below. And if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm trying to continue to build a base and talk more since it's in season. But hey, look, thank you for tuning in. I'm out.